find myself the same person who entered the salah and get out of the salah, the same level of iman, the same level of everything, it means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't accept it from me. I believe at that time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs me to repeat it again. Did you get the point over here? Do you feel yourself somebody different after the salah? You are, if your name is Ahmad, like Ahmad with the update, Ahmad with the more iman, Ahmad with the more akhlaq, Ahmad with the more patient, Ahmad with so and so and so. This is the point. Now with Dr. Hatim, تفضل, جزاكم الله خيرا.
جزاكم الله خير بارك الله فيك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I'm just gonna take a minute to adjust the presentation. We'll just, once he finishes praying Sunnah, inshallah. So, my name is Hatim Bazian. I'm the chair of American Muslims for Palestine, but also chair of the Muslim Legal Fund of America, which is local. But my day job is a professor at UC Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, and also at Zaytuna College in California. So, thank you for opening the mosque and for coming to attend a talk on Palestine, an issue that's still with us. And I'll cover a few things and hopefully we'll have a good discussion as we speak. So Jerusalem on the brink, the future of the blessed land. Okay, inshallah. So if the brothers can migrate and come in here, because I need security on this side, so the sisters will use the right side, inshallah. And if I like to stand, that's why I lecture in the college, so don't worry if I come close to you. It's just trying to be, more deliberate in my talk. Wa alaykum as-salam. Oh, she wants to make an announcement. Okay, bismillah. Here you go. Here's the.
When is that? Oh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the American Muslim for Palestine Dallas talk, Jerusalem on the Brink, the Future of the Blessed Land. We are honored that you are here. My name is Sadia Patel, and I currently work in the digital marketing space, and I'm a recent graduate of the SMU Human Rights Program. We are here tonight on the eve of the blessed occasion of Isra wal Mi'raj to hear about the blessed land of Jerusalem that holds one of the three holiest sites of Islam, Masjid al-Aqsa, and the site of the ascension of our Prophet ﷺ into the heavens, the site where Muslims once faced for Salah. In present times, there has been much strife that has endangered the existence of the inheritors of this land, the Palestinian people. Thus, we find ourselves having to look ahead and contemplate the future of this city and its people. So once again, thank you for being here. We have an amazing event planned for you tonight, and we will start off. We had a recitation from the Quran, but we will go ahead and welcome our guest speaker instead. To introduce our speaker, he is the co-founder and professor of Islamic law and theology at Zaytuna College, the first accredited Muslim liberal arts college in the U.S. He is also a lecturer in the Department of Near Eastern and Asian American and Asian Diaspora Studies at the University of California, Berkeley. Between 2002 and 2007, he was the adjunct professor of law at Boalt Hall School of Law at the University of California, Berkeley. He founded the Islamophobia Research and Documentation Project at the Center for Race and Gender at Berkeley in spring 2009. In addition to academic work, he's a weekly columnist for the Turkish Daily Sabah newspaper and Turkey Agenda online magazine. He's the founder and national chair of American Muslims for Palestine and chair of the Muslim Legal Fund of America and the Northern California Islamic Council. Brothers and sisters, our guest speaker, Dr. Hatem Bazian.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Because they already did the... So, first I want to get your attention to the 75th anniversary of the Nakba. This is the year 75th anniversary of the Nakba, and we're calling all people to come out to Washington, D.C. For a mass mobilization in commemoration, but also in demonstrating that we continue to have Palestine as a focal point and a central point in our work. So Washington, D.C. on Saturday, May 13th, 2023, and communities across the U.S. are joining, as well as all those who are supporting the cause of Palestine. Now, how many of you here work in the tech industry? So if you work in the tech industry, please take the QR code. I want you to fill this survey. This is Islamophobia in the tech industry. As we know, the tech industry, for Muslims who work in the tech industry, aside from all the issues, there are two issues that Muslims get censored on. One, if you speak about the Hindutva, Modi and PGP, and the second on Palestine. And also in terms of promotion, working with teams and so on. So what we're trying is to document how Islamophobia functions within the tech industry. In India, we had actually, Twitter had a PGP politician or political figure in their censorship board. So PGP was actually censoring, and recently the BBC had a whole documentary on Narendra Modi and the PGP, and Twitter actually censored the promotion of the documentary. So if you work in the tech industry, please take time to fill the survey. It's very critical to try to get data and information. So again, Islamophobia in the tech industry. So it's related to our work on Palestine and also on the Hindutva. So Biden's State Department refuses to actually say Palestinians are occupied. This is just a couple of weeks back. The journalist is asking the State Department, is the West Bank occupied? And the person actually from the State Department refused to mention that it is an occupied land, reflecting the Israeli perspective on this. The House ousted Ilhan Omar from its Foreign Affairs panel over past comments. Now we understand the politics. Ilhan Omar has been targeted systematically. I would say that she has 3 strikes against her. One, she's a refugee. Second, she's a black person. And third, she wears the hijab. But also there's a fourth, she actually speaks, right? So they would actually prefer to have Muslims that don't speak, don't say anything, and continue to be in their house. So again, this is part of the dynamics that we're dealing with. Now, complicity and indifference, when the State Department had the 11 Palestinians were killed by Israeli soldiers, the State Department said, we are deeply concerned. All right? And when the next 2 days later, a number of Israelis got killed, the United States condemns in the strongest terms. So meaning that the United States puts two separate values on the lives of Palestinians versus the lives of the Israelis. And many of us who have been monitoring the United States policy on Palestine, we're sick and tired of hearing somebody's concerned. All right? I might be concerned for the flat tire on my car, but it's not an issue relative to how I feel when it is an occupation that's been going on for 75 years. And that's really a direct outcome of our own policy here domestically, which I will get to. Double standards, right? As soon as the attack took place in Jerusalem, NPR, BBC sent out the news alerts. Now, let me ask you, how many of you received actually a news alert on the earthquake in Turkey and Syria from BBC or NPR? All right? So again, as soon as an event takes place in Jerusalem affecting Israelis, you're getting an alert on your phone from the news, which again points to this double standard, meaning if a tree falls in the forest and it's not on your Twitter and it's not on TikTok, did it really fall? So this is again our news and how it relates to the valuing of information relative to Palestinians versus Israelis. This is a Knesset member, Almag Cohen. When the Israeli troops killed 11 Palestinians, he said, nice and professional work by the fighters in Jenin. Keep killing them. Right? He was not censored. Nobody says anything. No one. Can you imagine if a Palestinian or any Muslim said anything of this nature? Not only in the Guantanamo Bay, most likely nobody will hear about you. This is a Knesset member, not somebody at 7-Eleven down the street just mouthing off. This is a Knesset member actually saying, keep killing them to the Palestinians. This is after killing 11 Palestinians. Now, these are the current government. What I want you to actually focus on Kahana lives. Now, if you know Mayor Kahana, in the United States, the Kahana movement has been declared a terrorist organization. Ben Gavir and the other two are part of the Kahana movement. That's why they say Kahana lives. Right? In 1995, one of the Kahana followers, Baruch Goldstein, burst into the Al-Ibrahimi Mosque and shot the Palestinians on Fajr prayer during Ramadan. All right? His grave, Baruch Goldstein, is visited as a site of visitation for the Kahana movement. So this is the type of government that we're dealing. Now, Ben Gavir was actually, would be considered criminal a few years back in Israel for his activities. Now he's heading the security, internal security for Israel. So that's the type of political landscape that Palestinians are dealing with. Benjamin Netanyahu promises to start annexing the West Bank. He says the Jewish people have an exclusive and unquestionable right to all areas of the land of Israel, the policy statement reads. Now, for those who don't know, Israel have declared that the West Bank is a disputed territory. So the Israelis do not consider the West Bank as an occupied territory, which is also similar to now the United States government is basically not saying that the Palestinian occupied territories are occupied territories. And Netanyahu is saying that they're going to begin to annex the West Bank. During the Trump administration, the U.S. gave a nod to the annexation of the Golan Heights. So that's where what you're seeing taking place in terms of Netanyahu. He says the nation of Israel has a natural right to the land of Israel. Now you need also to think during the Balfour Declaration of 1917, the British said the Jews had a historical link and connection. They did not say a natural right. So we're actually moving into a level of exclusive control and takeover of Palestinian land that is unprecedented, even from a historical point of view. U.S. developer pays over $200 million for slice of central Jerusalem. So this is the purchase was the first in Israel for Excel development, founded and headed by Jewish Zionist American businessman Gary Barnett. So he's actually have taken a large swath of land for the development, exclusive development for Jewish settlers. So you need to understand the dynamics that takes place. It's not like somebody, you buy a property and you develop it and anybody can use. It is specifically to encircle historical Jerusalem and to limit the Palestinian ability to live in their own land and their own properties. Israeli Knesset committee agrees to fast-track bill to revoke citizenship of Palestinian prisoners. This is Palestinian prisoners who are Israeli citizens to actually revoke their citizenship, in essence, to remove them. This is not unique in terms of the history of colonization. Every colonial state have practiced revoking citizenship of indigenous population. Speaking on India, Modi right now is also practicing the same. During the most recent election, they removed around 5 million voters from the Assam region, right, in order to prevent them from participating in election. So they're actually almost mirroring each other in terms of the strategies that are being pursued. J Street, which often is promoted in the US as being progressive, don't hold your breath, it says separation with solid Jewish majority, an appeal for Jim Crow Israel, J Street. So J Street wants to have a solid majority and also separation from the Palestinians. Separation is Jim Crow, apartheid, so this is where we are in relation to Israeli policy and what is being pursued. The concept of proportionality must cease to exist. 1,000 Palestinian mothers will cry. In international law, there is a principle of proportional response, meaning if I hit you in the face, not I'm going to do that you have the legitimate right to respond by hitting me a couple of times in the face. If you come with a bazooka, right, that is disproportional response to what is taking place. So Israel have always insisted that it could use as much force as it wants, all right, and disproportionality is always set aside. So this even is going to say if one Israeli is hurt, that 1,000 Palestinians need to be hurt and 1,000 mothers should cry for their children. Meaning is complete revenge as an approach and random violence to be committed, which we are witnessing almost on a daily basis in Palestine today. Since the beginning of January, we're having 2 Palestinians being shot on a daily basis within the territories. So U.S. policy empowers Israel, which is really what we need to understand. It's U.S. policy, it's us in here, not me and you, but us in terms of the United States. The United States has veto power in the UN Security Council. So every time there's a critique of Israel, there is a resolution, the United States has the veto power. Extend military and economic aid. This year, we gave to Israel $3.8 billion. Your taxes and my taxes. $3.8 billion. Also, we give Israel loans, but don't hold your breath. We have another, what's called the Cranston Amendment. The Cranston Amendment said any given year, our Israel debt obligation to us can't be, right? Israel debt obligation to us can't be less than our foreign aid to Israel. So if Israel owes us $10, we're obligated by law to give Israel $11. You would love to have this deal with your bank when they give you a loan on your house, that every year your debt payments to the bank cannot be then more what the bank gives you every year, or even student aid. So that's actually the Cranston Amendment, economic and military support. Shields Israel in all international settings across the board. Links U.S. aid to normalization with Israel. So if you're actually trying to think, why is Jordan, Mauritania, Chad, all these countries are just jumping to normalize with Israel, right? United States aid says if you're going to receive U.S. aid, you have to link part of your aid to Israeli economy. So basically, it facilitates to say that if we're going to give you 10 US dollars, you have to link whatever project to Israel, thus incentivizing all these countries that, for the most part, are run by dictators, alhamdulillah, right? And therefore, they get US aid and link their economy to Israel. All of a sudden, Israel is seen as a driver in the policy in the region. That's in our US aid, right? So all these projects that are connected in that way. Incentives on corporate and military cooperation with Israel. You hear some of the Zionists say that Israel is the startup country. And therefore, to try to say that they're somewhere geniuses, different than any group. Well, if there is a superpower, only superpower with the massive economy of 16 trillion economy is extending all the support to your country, small country, you definitely have to have geniuses in there because you're being supported by a superpower. So in this sense, he's also packaging Israel by means of our corporate support. Oracle is there, HP is there, Google is there, Facebook is there, all these companies, and the government, US government, incentivize these relations, right? So both our corporations benefit, but also projects Israel as unique, and then use Israel to actually go and penetrate other economies and other regions in the world. Punishes oppositions to Israel, right? So there's many laws on our books in the US that punishes those who oppose Israel. So for example, the Arab League for a long time, it was on paper, had a boycott of Israel, right? Therefore, US passed a law. If a country boycotts Israel, they will be subject to US sanctions and US punishments. So thus actually punishes anyone, any country that engages. And lastly, criminalizes and targets Palestinian activism. PDS, there's about 34 states in the US that have adopted anti-PDS legislation. And you had the case here in Texas, right, with the teacher that was subject to being fired because of her contract, because she had to sign that she will not engage in PDS. Similarly, I had a case in Arizona. I was going to go and give a speech in the University of Arizona, and the contract said, item 20 on the contract, that I will promise not to speak on the PDS. Well, my lecture was on the PDS. So I actually took the case to the court, and the state had to change the policy because we won in the court against them. So that's, again, try to criminalize Palestinian activism. For us in the United States, we have to think of two things that are very critical for Palestine. Two things. All right? One is ending US aid to Israel. All right? For me, as a Palestinian in the US, thinking that my taxes are buying the bullets, the tanks, the airplanes, the infrastructure that is actually killing Palestinians. Whether it's a penny or 3 pennies, whatever it is, that it's my taxes, I need to speak about it. I need to call for ending US aid to Israel. And second, ending US protection and support for apartheid Israel. Now, many of you possibly followed the assassination of Shireen Abu Akleh, right? Shireen Abu Akleh, the journalist, right? Now, Shireen Abu Akleh is dual citizen. She has a US passport and a Palestinian, Jordanian passport, so a dual citizen. How many of you here dual citizen? Don't worry, we don't have the FBI looking. How many are dual citizen? Okay. Now, here's what the United States said. If the International Criminal Court pursues an investigation of the assassination of Shireen Abu Akleh, that the United States will sanction and engage in legal action against the International Criminal Court. Threatening the International Criminal Court if they engage in the investigation of Shireen Abu Akleh's assassination. Meaning your government does not consider your citizenship and defending your right as a citizen against a foreign country, Israel. So do you see what in the United States is actually threatening the International Criminal Court, because the criminal court actually is going to investigate Shireen Abu Akleh's assassination. The State Department and the Congress is actually launching a whole campaign against the ICC, International Criminal Court. That is possible because of our, again, domestic continued support for Israel. Now, we just released the AJP action, the influence of extremist and right-wing Zionist money on Congress, elections, and policy. These are, you could have it online. You could download the full report in here with the QR code. To show the amount of money, we're facing about $500+ million of financial contributions that are going to support these politicians. Going back to Ilhan Omar, AIPAC arrayed about $20 million to try to defeat Ilhan Omar in Minnesota. 20 million, can you imagine? An average Congress seat is about $1 million to $1.5 million. That's the average cost to run for a congressional seat. In Ilhan Omar, right, they put $20 million to defeat her, yet she was able to withstand and win her seat again. In Rashida Tlaib, they recruited a person to run against her, gave her $1 million check just to run, right, against Rashida Tlaib. So again, that's the type of resources that are there, but we could say that we were able to organize and mobilize in order to actually maintain some of the political figures that are standing for Palestine, as well as speaking on Muslim issues. So achieving these tasks requires collective work, so that's why we have AMP, American Muslims for Palestine, and we're here. I know that Muslims say, if we just had Salah ad-Din, how many of you say that all the time? Okay, again, I would say if Salah ad-Din in here, he would be here by himself or outside, and you'll be drinking latte and Starbucks. Right? So even Salah ad-Din had to have a collective effort, right? A whole host of things that had to be put in place. So it's a collective effort. We're not into the hero, what you call syndrome. And I always say that the people you're waiting for is here. You need to get up and see what you could do collectively with other people. Education. You need to educate yourself about this issue. Maybe here you agree with me or not. We tend to go from 0 to 80 in emotions and 0 to 10 in action. And again, we're Arabs, right? So, we go to 0 to 120 in less than 3 seconds. We're faster than Tesla in that, right? But for action, 0 to 10 is like, oh, inshallah, it becomes like a dilatory, lazy type of discourse. So education is a must, and also less emotion in terms of engagement. Persistent, organized work. The best action is that which is small and that's consistent. Not the one that just like all of a sudden we have a massive things and then we come back into a lack of action. Continued outreach, whether to your congressman, senator, city council member, everyone, as well as your community. Continued outreach, networking with others, and then resources. So you need resources, whether material resources or other elements that needed to bring the issue to the front. So those are elements that are critical, and AMP will work with you, will work with the chapter in here to make sure that we do these things and continue to advocate for Palestine in ways that will have an impact. We don't know when the success will register. All what we have to do is to do the work, and the tawfiq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because somebody says, oh, we've been working on Palestine for so long. Well, the black community has been working for freedom for a long time, and they're still working at it, right? South Africa apartheid was on for many years, right? Over 200 years. Algeria, 132 years. India, likewise. So liberation and change does not come instantaneously. It takes a long time, deliberate and systematic work over a long time. So what you need is to dedicate yourself to the work without always thinking that it's going to come tomorrow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it happen when it makes it happen. So we need to understand Palestine, it's something colonial. So we want to stop people being confused about what is taking place. You talk to some people, say, Palestine is a complicated issue. It's complex. How many of you heard this? Oh, it's complex, it's difficult to talk about. Nuclear physics is complex, right? Fuzzy math is complex, but there's nothing complex about settler colonialism. or taken over territories. Now, when Herzl, at least you could appreciate his honesty, he says you're being invited to make history. It doesn't involve Africa, but a piece of Asia Minor. Not Englishmen, but Jews. How then do I happen to turn to you, since this is out of the way matter for you? How indeed? Because it is something colonial. He was writing to Cecil Rhodes. If you don't know Cecil Rhodes, he was the Minister of Colonies in Great Britain. And we say, Alhamdulillah, Britain is no longer great, right? Because only Allah is great. They used to say that Great Britain is the empire the sun never sat upon, because they used to have colony from China all the way to the New World. Now we say that Great Britain no longer have any sun. They have to go to Greece in order to get darker to look like the colonial people they colonized. So again, history has its own perspective. If you look at the world in 1914, wow, the mighty British, now they barely can actually make ends meet. So Cecil Rhodes named the whole country on his behalf, Rhodesia, which is gained its independence and now it's called Zimbabwe. So that's the type of discourse that is taking place at the time in terms of Herzl. The Balfour Declaration is 68 words of colonial dispossession. That's what the Balfour Declaration is about. All right? Now, I want you to look. At the time of the Balfour Declaration, 97% of Palestine's population was Palestinian, Muslim, and Christian. Only 3% of the population were Jewish. In here, they defined all of the communities. Their only description is non-Jewish communities. So the majority, 97%, that is only their only character. And only to protect their civil and religious rights, but not their political rights. So these are very important to understand how the British were really the colonial power that made possible the dispossession of the Palestinian, saying a land without a people for a people without a land. And from the get-go, they had the plan of transferring the Palestinians out. Every colonial project engages in two things, especially settler colonial projects. And I want you to remember them anytime you talk about colonization of Palestine. One is genocide. Every settler colonial project had engaged in genocide. And I can enumerate for you. King Leopold of Belgium committed genocide in the Congo. 8 million people were committed to genocide. The British engaged in genocide in India, whether it's the famine during the late 1880s or also the famine pre-World War II. Some estimate about 15 million. Right? Here in the United States, the genocide of the indigenous population. Germany in Namibia. Right? They actually, before they even tested their medical things in the Holocaust, they tested it in the black communities in Namibia. Right? France in Algeria, over 132 years, killed about 7 million Algerians. In the last 4 years of the resistance, 1.5 million Algerians were killed. So much so that the French were so sick, they used to sever the heads of resistant fighters in Algeria and take them to the museum in France, in the Museum of Man, to be exhibited. That's a level of sickness that anyone that critique Islamic history, that's a level of sickness we did not even come close to even having a notion of it. So genocide. Second is transfer. Every colonial project transfer population in order to get the best lands, in order to have development. Like in here we did both. Indigenous communities, genocide, and the remaining we send them to concentration camp. We call it reservations. Right? Native Americans in this country. So again, this is what is taking place in Palestine. Genocide, whether it's 1917 with the British all the way to 48 and from 48 to now. That's a policy, colonial policy. And it is as fundamental to colonial projects as anything else, rather than often saying that it's incidental. So during the Nakba did not begin in 48, even though we speak about 48. If I ask the question, when did Palestine became a colony? Is in 1917. And precisely December 10th, 1917, the British entered and colonized Palestine. And from 1917 to 1948, they developed the mechanism to incubate Zionism as a state within a state because they needed to get a critical mass population in there. And the British, when they entered Palestine, they defined their entry to Palestine. They said in the front line of their newspaper, now the Crusades come to an end, rescuing Jerusalem after 732 years of Muslim rule. That's what they wrote in their own press, and that was the material that they sent out. They saw it as the end of the Crusades, and they defined it as such. It's not us that continue to hold this Crusader memory. They actually defined that relation. They facilitated the movement of Zionism and then withdrew from Palestine without actually resolving the political issues in there in order not to actually hand Palestine to its indigenous population. So the British actually are responsible for some of the consequences, and I do actually demand that the British should, one, apologize to the Palestinians for the Balfour Declaration, apologize for the 1917, and also paying reparation, because they also caused the massive destruction of the Palestinian society during their rule from 1917 to 1948. You need to know this person, Vladimir Jabotinsky. Netanyahu's father is the editor of Jabotinsky's paper, memoirs, and so on. So Netanyahu comes from the revisionist Zionist camp. He's beholden to this Zionist idea and in colonization. Jabotinsky says a voluntary reconciliation with the Arabs is out of the question, either now or in the future. If you wish to colonize a land in which people are already living, you must provide a garrison for the land or find some rich man or benefactor, it was the British and now the United States, who will provide a garrison on your behalf, or else give up your colonization without an armed force, which will render physically impossible any attempt to destroy or prevent this colonization. Colonization is impossible, not difficult, not dangerous, but impossible. Zionism is a colonization adventure, and therefore it stands and falls by the question of armed force. It is important to speak Hebrew, but unfortunately it's even more important to be able to shoot, or else I am through with playing at colonizing. Okay? This is Vladimir Jabotinsky, the founder of the Likud line of political parties, and Netanyahu is beholden to that line. So the idea of a two-state solution, unless you have a mental, what you call, defect, Zionism is not interested at any level with a two-state solution from its inception. So the Nakba, how it happened, it was forced expulsion of 750,000 Palestinians, taken over 8 major cities, demolishing 541 villages. All right? So think of Irving, Dallas area. Overnight or over a period of few weeks, completely all the population is forced out. And then you hand these houses to incoming Zionist settlers, taking the land, the streets, the gyms, the banks, the cars, the orchards. So the notion that Israel made the desert bloom, we Palestinians say they took it fully furnished. You know, when you come and take a house, you say it's fully furnished. Israel and the Zionism took Palestine fully furnished. Houses furnished, farms fully furnished, streets fully paved, every aspect of the society. Mercedes dealership, not that I want you to buy a Mercedes, but Mercedes dealerships that were there in Palestine and completely taken over, and Palestinians were pushed out from their homes. That's what the Nakba, and Ben Gurion again saying to drive these people out from their homes and lands. We say about the word apartheid, all right? Israeli regime of a colonizing power under the guise of occupation, which include many of the worst features of apartheid. This is the UN Special Rapporteur, John Dugard. So apartheid meaning setting two separate laws, two different laws for two different peoples. Right? So Palestinians are subject to one law, while settlers as well as Israelis are subject to a different law altogether. So apartheid Israel is a full democracy only if you consider apartheid South Africa full democracy. So yes, Israel is a democracy if you are Zionist and Jewish. It's like saying US democracy is as long as you are white. So the United States was an apartheid democracy during the early period, right? Because it's only white property owners were considered to be citizens and having rights. Everyone else did not, and that was the process of change. So citizenship and nationality. The legal system creates two tracks of acquiring citizenship. In most states in the world, when you are a citizen, you're a participant in the society. Not in Israel. They define citizenship is one thing and nationality is a separate thing. Only Jewish Zionists can be nationals. So when Netanyahu says that Israel is a Jewish state and only Jews, which they passed the law, have sovereignty, meaning that 22% of Palestinians who are citizens of Israel, carry Israeli citizenship, they do not have sovereignty. Sovereignty only for Jews, which translates the following. If you have a Jewish Zionist here in Irving, literally tomorrow can go to the airport, get on a plane, land in Israel, immediately have citizenship and nationality, and be able to move to a settlement and get a tax break from the government to do so. While a Palestinian, who their family is in Israel, right, here can do the same. They'll actually be returned. Not only that, even if you're in the West Bank, you could be returned. Right? So that's, again, a distinction between citizenship and nationality. Most of the Israeli spokespeople, when they come and talk to you, say, look, we give the Palestinians citizenship, they're citizens of Israel. This is what you call double speak, because they're not saying the distinction by law between citizenship and nationality. So anyone that stands up and speaks this, whatever you say, I'm saying, could you please explain to us what is the distinction between citizenship and nationality in Israel basic law? Just tell them, does the Palestinian have the same right as a citizen that the national has? So Palestinians might not have access to housing loans. They might not have access to student loans. They might not be able to, again, for those who celebrate Valentine's Day, I'm not making any statement, but if you celebrate Valentine's Day, if you're a Palestinian in Israel and you get married to somebody from the West Bank or anywhere in the world, you can't bring your husband or wife to live with you. Right? In any country in the world, even if Martians come and get married, they could actually take their husband or wife with them to Mars. In Palestine, for Palestinians, if you are in Israel as Israeli citizen, you cannot bring your husband or wife to live with you. Or if you live in Jerusalem, likewise, you can't bring your husband or wife that lives in Ramallah, which literally would be less than 10 miles away. So basically, some Palestinians are married and they just commute in terms of keeping their marriage, because if the Jerusalem person moves, they lose their ID and residency. Very, very sophisticated apartheid system that is in effect. The Palestinians in Israel are occupied citizens, and the residents of the occupied territories are unrecognized citizens. Whether or not the legal line survives may be immaterial. However, as the effects is likely to be the same, the continued subordination of the Palestinians. All right? So again, Palestinians live under a peculiar set of legal system that affects them, whether in Israel or in the West Bank. So this is Palestinians that were expelled. It just shows where we are in terms of the 48. And then when we talk about Palestine in the West Bank, all what you see is only 12% of historical Palestine. In terms of the West Bank right now, that is subject to Palestinian control. And even that is being encroached upon and taken over from 1917 all the way where we are in 2020. Now, the old city of Jerusalem, what is Al-Aqsa Mosque? When we say Al-Aqsa Mosque, what is Al-Aqsa Mosque? Huh? Like when I say Al-Aqsa Mosque, what am I referring to? Okay, the third sacred mosque on earth, right? First Qibla? The third haram. So when we're talking about this, where is the Al-Aqsa Mosque? So the whole yellow area is the Al-Aqsa. It's 144 acres. People confuse the building, the two buildings. Actually, there's more than two buildings. There's actually many more, but the two main buildings are the Al-Aqsa Mosque that was built during the time of the Umayyad, early on. Actually, it dates back to the time of Umar, right? The first part, and then the Dome of the Rock, right? Built around 692 period, right? In there. Those are the buildings on the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So the physical mosque is the full yellow area rather than only the two mosques that are built within the area. Right? This is very important for us to understand because today Israel and the Zionists say we want to have a foothold up there because you already have these two big mosques and they're almost on a daily basis attacking and having a campaign on Al-Aqsa Mosque. So again, this is another view of the old city of Jerusalem. Now the old city of Jerusalem, in terms of its history, it's a Canaanite city in its origin. So again, people reference to the time of Dawood and Sulaiman, that's in terms of building, but as far as its origin, it actually is a very old Canaanite. We know this because when Ibrahim alayhi salam migrated, he actually met the king of the Canaanites in Jerusalem, King Malik Sadiq. And it says that he spoke the language of the Canaanites. He lived as an alien among them. So again, it's a long history in terms of Jerusalem. This is what the Palestinians face every day. Every day you have settlers, and these are what you call not your interfaith dialogue. These are settlers coming with protection of the army. You see the army in here, this soldier here, and other soldiers. They are heavily armed, having machine guns with them, and literally they prance around on the Al-Aqsa Mosque daily, wanting to put a foundational stone. Right? So that's the effort, to put the foundational stone for the third temple. And literally they have plans, they want to demolish the existing structures, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. So you're not dealing, because often people come say, oh, the Muslims are not allowing Jews to come into Al-Aqsa Mosque, right? And they say you are against religious freedom and so on. So that we need to understand how the language gets to be used in such a way. So again, this is inside the Al-Aqsa. Right? Palestinians try to confront these individuals that are walking into the sacred site. Under international law, this area is Palestinian area. Right? No Zionists have the right to be there. It is actually, the legal custodianship is for the Jordanian government for the awqaf in there. So the Israelis are violating international law for this. But again, international law has become what you call a basket case in terms of the major power, but just to understand what is taking place. So this is all, again, daily basis of settlers coming in with the support of the military personnel, and usually end up shooting Palestinians who are standing and trying to defend the sacred sites on behalf of the Ummah. That's basically what the Palestinians see it, because this belongs to the Ummah in general as a sacred site. Right, so this is, again, these are some of your more extreme right-wing individuals that are coming in there. They also bring settler kids and teaching them that this is we need to demolish this place and build the third temple. So you get some really pernicious type of engagements with even what is being instructed of the kids. And always the Israeli military in there protecting them coming in. So there's in both Al-Aqsa and the Dome of the Rock, every day there's hundreds, if not thousands, Palestinians from the 48 area, from Israel itself, that have buses to come and protect Al-Aqsa Mosque. And there are a large number of women that actually take it as part of their role to do so. They take buses from 48, from Nasra, from Haifa, and they take what you call turns in coming to Al-Aqsa in order to have constant presence in there because they're facing the constant assault from Zionists and the Israelis. And many actually ate their breakfast in their lunch, dinner, so they always have activities as a way of standing guard, right, in terms of protecting. Now I want you to see the flags in there, the Israeli flags. The settlers always try to take houses and attack properties around the circle of Al-Aqsa Mosque. And usually you could tell which houses have been taken over because immediately they put a flag in there and the Israeli military protects them. Settlers have taken hundreds of houses of Palestinians in Jerusalem. And in any civilized country, when thugs come at the middle of the night in your house, attacking your house, you pick up the phone and call the police. Most civilized countries, if not all, right, the police will come and arrest those individuals that came and attacked your house. Not in Palestine, not in Jerusalem. You call the police because these settlers descended on the house and literally threw your furniture out and took the house. The army comes and the Israeli police, they protect the settlers and prevent you from actually taking back your house. And they refer the case to the court. Who is in the court? 3 Israeli settler judges. And most often you are unable to actually get back your house. These settlers come with documents to say that we bought the house. Well, who sold it to you? Well, we got the deed to the house. How did you get the deed to the house? I did not sell the house. I have it here from the Ottomans, from the British and the Jordanian government that I own the house. Well, this is a disputed territory. Your paper are as good as mine. And the Israeli government basically put you out on the yard with a tent and you're there for years. That's what happens almost on a daily basis. Right? That's why the whole battle, do you remember the battle around Sheikh Jarrah? You remember the short video by Jacob, the settler? He said, if I don't take it, someone else will take it. So literally, if Jacob did not take it, someone else would, meaning that's the plan. We're going to take your house, whether you like it or not. Right? So that's what we are doing. They want to encircle all around the old Aqsa area in order to actually empty the region from Palestinians, Muslims, and Christians as well, in order to get into building what they consider to be the third temple. That's the plan. Right? And they're going around it systematically. Again, the police, Israeli police and military, every day, this is everyday occurrence. It's not the Palestinians who are calling them to come. They come to protect the Israeli settlers, and they just go around almost constantly doing this. So this is just an image. So this is the Dome of the Rock, where the Prophet ﷺ ascended. This is the month of Isra and the Mi'raj. So this is where the location of the Mi'raj. Underneath it is the rock where the Prophet ﷺ played under, and also from it ascended to the heaven. And this is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, right, which is called Al-Masjid Al-Qibli. This is the one that Umar built to face the direction of Mecca. And supposedly, Umar, immediately after the entry into Jerusalem, this was a garbage dump. They cleaned it with all of the Sahabas, and they held the first Jum'ah prayer in there. And Bilal was actually the first person to give the adhan in Jerusalem, which is in reference to some of the commentators, because Bilal was the first to give the adhan in Medina, and the first to give the adhan in Mecca, and the first to give the adhan in Jerusalem, which all these were where the Prophet ﷺ prayed, and he's the mu'adhin of the Prophet ﷺ. So we could actually understand that Bilal himself recognized that the Prophet prayed in that location. So, this is the image of what takes place every Friday, because Palestinians are prohibited from attending the Friday prayer in Al-Aqsa Mosque. How many of you in here traveled to Jerusalem to see Al-Aqsa and pray in there? Right? Now, you have Palestinians that were born in the West Bank and have not been able to pray in Al-Aqsa Mosque, even though they will see it from their backyard or their balcony. So you have a Palestinian that has been born literally seeing Al-Aqsa just down the street. But they are not given the permission to go and pray. Sometimes they have to climb over hills and all kinds of ways just to get into Al-Aqsa Mosque. So many people will pray in the street. Today, actually, the Israeli military beat up people who were praying in the street. Right? In the old city as well as outside, because people were coming. As soon as the time prayer, the Israeli military puts a checkpoint, and you can't go to Al-Aqsa Mosque. So people will sit there and continue to pray, and then the Israeli military faces and beats up some of the individuals. Now, here's one of the things that Palestinians often put in their will at the moment of death: say, make sure to take me for the janazah prayer in Al-Aqsa. All right? So families from various parts will carry the coffin, and to try to get it to Al-Aqsa, they're prohibited from going forward. So they'll end up having the janazah right there in the street. All right? While the settlers having almost standing on various doors with the police, having a field day, while a Palestinian, even in death, Palestinians don't have access to Al-Aqsa Mosque. All right? So even in death, this is what they're facing. So usually after every Friday prayer, there's a clashes takes place where the Israelis fire tear gas, find ways to attack the Palestinians who are praying. This is at the entrance to Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Qibla. This is often the Israeli military fire tear gas. The old windows that were from the period of Salah ad-Din's era, what you call stained windows, in the last 2020 Ramadan, the Israeli military fired tear gas throughout these glass windows all around, and they're still broken. Right? These are, again, if you talk about here in the US, anything that's 150 years will put as a historical landmark. They have no respect for any landmark whatsoever. No respect for the stained glass, no respect for the door. They walk into Al-Aqsa Mosque chasing people, firing tear gas in there with their shoes on. No respect whatsoever. Right? And unfortunately, some of our Muslim countries' leaders these days, they go to try to pray in Al-Aqsa Mosque, supported and protected by the Israeli military. Right? So Ben-Gvir said that he will assault the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and he wants to establish a foothold in Al-Aqsa Mosque. He wants to build the third temple. He said, this is our property, and again, he's constantly, almost on a weekly basis, as a security chief of internal security is engaging in this. Now, for people who like Jordan Peterson, how many know Jordan Peterson? You know, Jordan Peterson, he gives us what you call a few nice comments on some issues, social issues here and there, but he is lock, stock, and barrel, embrace Zionism, embrace Netanyahu, and again, he gives them all what he wants. So he toured again Al-Aqsa Mosque, not tour again, this is with Ben Shapiro, and with one of the most vehement right-wing Zionist organizations in there. So this is again from Masjid al-Aqsa reporting on Jordan Peterson coming in there. So again, I know people listen to some of his statements. Again, what I say is the poison is in the fat that is there. He's basically embraced Zionism and everything that comes with it. So we need to understand there. And then this is Daniel Pipes touring or going in Al-Aqsa Mosque. He's violating U.S. law because he's a U.S. citizen, and again going and pouncing in there with likewise, this is the guy who's always promoting building the third temple over the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So the linkages that we are seeing, again, is paramount and to understand what is taking place. So Palestine from Oslo, and I'm going to stop in here. I don't want to go any further. But Palestine from Oslo to apartheid, Palestine has been divided and almost dissected. So you have no contiguity for Palestinian life. Either you have close to 500 checkpoints, you have bypass roads, you have settlements, and then the emptying of the Jordan Valley of population and resources. So this is what we're dealing with today. I still believe that Palestine will be free. I have as firm belief that this is going to happen. It just requires for us to do the work and continue to actually both educate and promote the cause of Palestine. So, Jazakumullah khair for listening. I'll take any and all questions from you. Yes.
Things over a period of decades that Islam has grown and the Muslim population has grown. What do you think will be a flat point that will make a decisive change in policy?
I think we are at the cusp of making a change. I don't underestimate the fact that we took on AIPAC with Ilhan Omar's election and Rashida Tlaib. I think those were very, very important campaigns that showed not only that we would stand AIPAC, but actually we could win without having to pull back in our position. The fact that also if you look at where the public opinion, especially within the Democratic Party, has shifted drastically on Palestine, where a majority of Democrats are sympathetic to Palestinians and Palestine. One of the major challenges for us as Muslims is that some of us, not all, but some of us still think that our empowerment passes through developing relations with the Zionists under the rubric of interfaith dialogue. And we confuse interfaith dialogue with acceptance, normalization, and almost silencing Palestine in our collective work. And I think what we need is to make a very deliberate move. One is that we are a community that want to engage in interfaith, but we need to be sure that it's not interfaith washing for Palestine and issues that are dear to us. And increasingly in the US, there is an alliance that has emerged between the Hindu nationalists, the Hindutva, with the American Hindu Foundations and so on, and Zionism. And that relationship is no longer possible for you as a Muslim to engage in interfaith dialogue and think that being good with Zionism and accepting this will be the way for you to move forward, because you have to confront Hindutva and the Hindu nationalists. So I think at a strategic level, Muslims need to understand that they have the critical mass, they have the resources, and they need to develop a collective agenda for empowerment. No one is going to open the door for you except they want something bad. There's no such thing as a free lunch in America. And what we need is to understand that our relationship with the Zionist organizations is not what you call a free ride. It is contingent on you being silenced and not actually advocate for your critical causes. Palestine, but also Islamophobia. I do the work on Islamophobia. 70% of all the funding for Islamophobic attacks on the Muslim community comes from Zionist sources. So on the one hand, having interfaith with partners that actually are producing Islamophobia against the collectivity of the Muslim community. So those are the issues that I think we need to confront as Muslims. One to go, Alec. Do we have another mic? So
I just speak. I realize the political fight being, uphill, if you will. If you could just speak a minute about on the media level. I mean, I know it's common sense says there's that battle, but giving us kind of like a realistic picture of how difficult it is to kind of even on the major media network.
Well, the mainstream media is heavily tilted toward a pro-Israel perspective. And that is not going to change in the immediate period. But I do think in the social media space, we have been able to make a major impact. That Israel is no longer able to sustain its narrative on the social media. But increasingly, we need to strategize of how to bring more of our voices to the mainstream media, and that has many complex issues. Much of it is that we are not oriented toward majors in study that are not of the technical field, meaning most of our students at colleges are studying only two majors, which I call them the Muslim majors, right? Either engineering or medicine. So I'm looking like in Berkeley, I have almost 1,000 or more Muslim students. I would estimate over 95% of them are studying these two majors, which means that as far as impacting the society, the majors that we are studying do not have an impact on the society in terms of opinion making. So we have to strategize on terms of how to but encourage our community to diversify the fields of study. I did work and continue to support the Islamic Scholarship Fund. Islamic Scholarship Fund gives scholarship to what we call non-traditional Muslim majors. If you want to study journalism, media, filmmaking, public policy, law, we will actually give you a scholarship for that. So the effects on the media, you have to be there. If you're not there, you're not going to be able to impact the narrative. So that's what's taken place on the mainstream media versus the social media. I think the social media, we have an impact, but not on the mainstream media yet. And that's structural issues that we have to confront. Any questions? Yes. Yeah, well, EMP, we're working on curriculum for schools, working on such shorter presentations, videos, pieces, but that's influencing your base versus influencing the general public. So the media for the general public requires much more work and more complex work. The work that we're doing, we're definitely impacting by influencing our base. We're getting people involved. We have people, we take people to lobby, so we train people on lobbying. We have advocacy day in Washington, D.C. So we're doing the work in moving our community. But again, the resources of impacting the general society, that's where it requires heavy investment. And that investment is not yet there from a human resource base. All right, so again, just think about how many people are actually in the journalism field. In Berkeley, I would only mention one person out of a population of 2,000 students. That's basically your capacity for positioning somebody to advance is very, very limited. On a national level, we could speak only of one person, maybe two, that have what you call standing, either, what's his name, Mahdi Hassan and Ayman Muhyiddin. These are two on a national scale of 350, and both are within the same station, MSNBC. All right? At a time where you have to have people in all of these levels at the various levels. So for example, if you're a college student, I know that you want to be a member of the MSA, alhamdulillah, but there's a newspaper in every campus. Volunteer for the newspaper as a freshman. By the third year, you become a part of the editorial board of the newspaper. Every campus has a radio station, a TV station. You volunteer as a freshman. By the third year, you have your own program. Each college is about 30,000 people that you could influence. Right? So we have to begin to talk to our young people. I know that, part of it is the parents. So honestly, the parents, if you study this, you're not going to have any money, you're not going to get married, and so on. As if God, what you call, have already oriented what you're going to have and what you're going to make. So the parents have to actually be part of the solution, because the struggle is that the parents come, can you talk to my son? He wants to study what you call sociology. His grandfather wanted him to be a doctor. And if he does not become a doctor, the family is going to be very sad. Right? So it's actually the parents and the socialization that is the challenge. Okay? Jazakumullah khair. I know we're coming close to Ramadan. I could stay with you to suhoor, but I don't want to train you for that, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair for listening. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and bless your families. And we'll just have a final announcement.
If everyone can give us 2 more minutes. Jazakallahu khair, Brother Hatem, for coming, and I hope everyone enjoyed his talk. Just a quick reminder that we do have a registration table in the back for the brothers, and for the sisters to the right, we have a registration table. If you could make your way downstairs or to the left and register. And I encourage everyone to visit the website AMP Palestine to learn more about American Muslims for Palestine and to join our mailing list. But before we end the night, we have a spoken word poet that we would like you guys to give your 2 minutes to. Mason is a 4th grader from Plano who originates from Palestine. She is an active in Girl Scouts and Mass Islamic Center. She will be presenting a translated poem by the famous Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish titled, "Write Down, I Am an Arab."
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Maysan Abbasad, and today I wanted to be reading a poem to you written by Mahmoud Darwish. Record. I am an Arab, and my identity card is number 50,000. I have 8 children, and the 9th is coming after a summer. Will you be angry? Record. I am an Arab, employed with fellow workers at a quarry. I have 8 children. I get them bread, garments, and books from the rocks. I do not supplicate charity at your doors, nor do I belittle myself at the footsteps of your chamber. So will you be angry? Record. I am an Arab. I have a name without a title. Patient in a country where people are enraged, my roots were entrenched before the birth of time and before the opening of the eras, before the pines and the olive trees and before the grass grew. My father descends from the family of the plow, not from a privileged class, and my grandfather was a farmer, neither well-bred nor well-born, teaches me the pride of the sun before teaching me how to read. In my house,